What's up, blue collar scholars? Here to talk about the coffee growing process. This is something that in most coffee shops we just don't talk a whole lot about because it's done way before we ever get to it. And to be honest with you, a lot of coffee shops are actually talking about it. And because they're talking about it, we're actually making some progress. It's not a lot of progress, but it's some. But I did want to talk about it, one, to give a couple of things. I want to talk about our position on farming and commodities and all of this stuff. And we're still developing these concepts of ours, right? So we've started in one place and we're on a journey, we're on a path. Our position is going to change regularly based on information, based on capabilities. A lot of what we're able to do is based on, we're a business. It's based on money, right? So as much as I would love to just flow money downstream and upstream and make everybody rich, the hard part is that comes from the consumers. People have to pay that money in order for that money to be put into the system to go up and downstream. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this is because coffee is, one, it's amazing and we love it, and it's really undervalued right now. And part of the reason why I want to explain why I believe that coffee is undervalued and why I do think we're going to be paying, beer prices and wine prices for coffee. So some of the stuff I'm going to be referenced a couple times is Dan Brown's here. Oh, dear coffee buyer. Today, not to get into a whole lot, but just some pictures really is, one, just to kick it off, that is a cute little coffee plant. So to go from here, actually not even there, from seed to this, to getting some beautiful coffee cherries, takes about 5 years. And so us here in Arizona, we grow citrus. There's lots and lots of citrus. It's one of our 5 C's. It is a core to Arizona. So a lot of us have grown citrus. And we know that it takes a long time. You usually plant an orange tree. Maybe there were some oranges on it. You might get some the first year. They're usually not very good. And then nothing the next year or even the next year. And it usually takes a couple of years for that tree to get established. And then it just starts exploding and starts pumping out. If you've ever had a lemon or a lime tree, you're like, oh, I like lemons. I'll plant the lemon tree. And then you're like, oh, good. Yeah, I got a couple lemons. Perfect for lemon in my water. And then 5 years later, you have 5-gallon buckets of lemons. You're like, I can't do anything with these lemons. Yes, that did happen to me. And I was giving away 5 gallons of buckets of lemons because what do you do with that many lemons? Coffee's kind of similar, except it's not, an orange is this big. Coffee cherry is that big, right? They produce a lot more on the branch. I get it. I'm just saying. So a coffee plant takes about 5 years before its first crop. Okay, so if you think about it, a farmer has to start a seed, get it going, put it in the ground, and wait 5 years before they can pick any cherries to process and sell. So 5 years. Think about it. Think about a time in which you were doing something for 5 years, 5 days, 5 minutes before you waited for something in return to it. So I'm in the corporate world, and our standard ROI turnaround is that it needs to pay 150% of the cost in the first year. It means it needs to pay for itself plus 50% in the first year for them to even approve it, right? I had to do that math and that justification just to get anything done. And so what we're saying is these farmers have to put it in and go 5 years incurring cost and all of these things and get zero return for 5 years before they even get their first harvest. And that's a lot of time. And so we don't consider that. We don't really consider the farmer in the bind. I've got, how to start a coffee bar, all these random little books and things like this. They don't talk about that. They don't talk about the farmer. They don't talk about anything. They talk about, this is our business. It's right here. It's self-contained, right? I buy these things, I sell these things. It's stuff that goes in and out, but all I care about is right here. But the reality is that we need to think a little bit farther out. I need to think about you as the customer, but I also need to look back and think of them as the farmer, because if I went 5 years, I wouldn't be able to go 5 years without selling coffee. Like if I was just like roasting coffee and not selling anything for 5 years, I would go out of business. I wouldn't be able to operate. And so like I got to think back that way and think, boy, if the money's not going back there, these farmers are eventually, they're not going to be able to make coffee. They're going to go out of business. And then what happens upstream to me? Coffee prices go up because there's less of it. And then what does that mean? That means coffee prices go up to the consumer because there's less of it. The demand stays the same, but the coffee reduces in volume, so the price is going to go up to compensate for that. So it's going to adjust the demand based on price, and price is going to be that great equalizer between supply and demand, right? So just something to think about when you're looking at coffee. Price, I know price is important, don't get me wrong. I am a price person, I get it, I'm very value oriented, but we have to remember that price is one of those things that is part of the system, right? And if we only buy on price, so like my cup of coffee, if I only buy the 99-cent coffee, that means that 99 cents has to pay for the person that's making it, the person that's roasting it, and then the person that imports it, and then the person that grew it. So if you're buying a 99-cent cup of coffee, how much of that is getting down to the farmer? Probably less than a penny, to be honest with you. And so the coffee growing process is hard, right? There's only a specific area we can grow coffee. The regions are mountainous. They like elevation. There's so many conditions that go into growing good coffee. So it's not like we can just grow it everywhere. There are mass production coffee farms, but that's where you get Folgers, stuff like that. It doesn't taste good. It doesn't have the nutritional value. It doesn't have any of the benefits. They are just like completely screwing the land the way that they farm, right? Through, quick farming and harvesting, and it's very harsh. It's very aggressive, and it's not really in tune with nature. So, just something to consider. Like the farming process for coffee is extensive. It's long and it takes a lot of care. And so I just want you to consider that. Like maybe if you go to a local shop, ask them about the farm, ask them about their supplier, ask them where they're getting their green coffee from. Sometimes there's a lot of cool stories in there. Like we haven't focused on the stories of our farmers and things like that because in all honesty, people don't ask. And because people don't ask, we haven't taken the time to build that stuff out. But we are trying to make sure that we are investing in the future, which means paying good prices for good coffee and not supporting crappy commodity coffee. That's the key, I think. So remember, the coffee growing process is extensive, it's long, and it costs money. So we got to pay for that thing. And I pay good money for good coffee. That's true of everything. So hopefully that wasn't too much of a downer for you. But if you have an example where you've thought about, the supplier or the anything like that, like up in the chain, like if you're a beer drinker, like who supplies the grains, where the grains come from, where the hops come from. If you have an example where you've thought about that before, drop it in the comments. I'd like to hear about your beverage and the supply chain that you care about, that you've taken the time to look into and research and understand, and how that's added value. So with that, everybody, I'll say adieu.